I was going through the story of Joseph again. I've read the story countless times, but this time something stuck to me. I like it whenever God does that, when He shows you something you've never seen before, despite reading it plenty times. Personally, my beef isn't even with his brothers, but with the butler that got released. I knew from the first time I heard Joseph's story, that the butler was mean. I mean, here is someone who interpreted a confusing dream for you and it happened as it did, and he told you, probably begged you that once you got released, you shouldn't forget him, tell the king about him and his plight. And what does the butler do? He totally forgot about him. I always wondered why. Then God told me why, and it's simple, which is, God's time is the best. Now imagine, truly the butler remembers and tells the king here are two ways it could have gone for both Joseph and the butler. 1. Joseph would be released and he would be free, which I assume the first thing he would do is to go back to his home to meet his father. Share the terrible experience his brother put him through and all that. I can only imagine the drama that would cause. But more importantly, when the 7 years of famine do happen, Joseph would also be stuck, like his brothers, as there is no food and he would probably have died of famine or worse, die not realizing how influential his life would have been. And it got me thinking, how many of us have given up on God's grand plan for short-term gain? That includes me. Anyone would choose to be a free man instead of rotting in jail for a crime you didn't even commit to begin with. This story made me see my troubles and challenges differently. Instead of looking for a short way out, I can just pray to God and be patient for His reply, for His thoughts towards me are of good and not evil. Now the second point I wanted to make was that if the butler had told the king about Joseph, the king could have had the butler beheaded as he did to the baker. I mean, who are you to tell the king what to do and what not to do? That's an insult. To make matters worse, the person in jail was accused of raping a high official wife and you are advocating for him. That's a one-way ticket to his execution. And thank God, he forgot about Joseph, or at least God made him forget, because the second option seems more plausible than the first, and that would mean when someone would have spoken up for Joseph when it mattered, there would be no one. And this is why God's time is best. Because not only was it the perfect time for the butler to provide a solution to the king, but as soon as Joseph was able to solve the dream, he became a king himself. Let me take a moment to explain that. Joseph went from being a prisoner to being a king, without any interview. He didn't merit it, nothing. And I say king, because he had the highest power in Egypt. The only person higher than him was the Pharaoh, and that was by name, because Joseph was actually performing the duties of the Pharaoh. Pharaoh gave him his ring, which gave Joseph the authority to do anything he wanted and run Egypt without interference. So imagine Joseph didn't trust in God, or imagine Joseph wanted to do things his own way and escaped. He would have missed out on this monumental blessing. This is a reminder to everyone watching, including me saying this, to just trust God. No matter how dire the situation might be, just trust that God will turn it for your good. Joseph's trust in God must be strong that despite spending close to a decade if not 2 decades in prison, his faith never faltered. It's not easy, not going to lie, but I want you to use this story as an inspiration that your case is not forgotten. Just trust in the Lord, and just as Joseph's life was turned around in one day, your life too will be turned around and you will see the goodness of the Lord. Amen.